This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. and Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
WESN.
Welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Takia Thompson, and today is Wildlife Wednesday. Tobago's rainforest is one of the oldest protected reserves in the Western Hemisphere, and it's home to a rich variety of bird life, from colorful hummingbirds to rare and elusive species found nowhere else. This morning, we turn our attention to the beauty and importance of these birds and what they tell us.
Has around maybe 250, 260 species.
Wow.
Many of these are migratory species as well. So not all are, let's say, residents.
Yeah.
As in, not all of them breed there, not all of them nest there. They are, because Tobago has been an island for so long, many of these species are actually endemic subspecies. So they may not be like their own separate species, like they wouldn't have their own particular name, their English name.
Yeah.
They would have, they have enough genetic separation to be a unique subspecies. So some hummingbirds, for example, or owls, or, you know, these birds are unique to the island in a way that it's pretty subtle. So not everyone is going to see it, but when the scientists investigate how things are, they realize that they may look a little different, they may sound a little different, they may be a little bigger, usually bigger, because it's a phenomenon with island species that many of them tend to be larger.
Oh, that's fascinating to know. Can you highlight a few iconic or standout bird species that people should look out for? You mentioned, the hummingbird and the cocorico. Those are stuff we normally see. Any others that, we can look out for?
Well, I'm glad you say hummingbird and coquelicot, right? So Tobago actually has 6 different types of hummingbirds, 6 different species.
Oh,
Of these, there are a few that are very, very unique and interesting. So there's one called the copper-rumped hummingbird, which is a familiar sight for many of us. It's a little green one that we typically would see around our gardens, and we tend to take it for granted. But that little species is actually unique to Trinidad, Tobago, and Venezuela, just a very small portion of forest in Venezuela.
wow.
So most people that are coming here have never ever seen that bird before. And it was also first scientifically described on Tobago. And that's reflected in its scientific name, in its Latin name. Also, another type of hummingbird that we have is the white-tailed saberwing, which is a bird that many people come to see. And when you're driving through the rainforest, you see signs, and they use the name Campi to describe the species. And Campi is short for its Latin name, Campylopterus. And it's been in 1963, Tobago felt the brunt of Hurricane Flora, Category 3 hurricane. And for 11 years after that, there were no white-tailed saberwings to be seen. Unfortunately, they are making a comeback now. So it is one of the species that many people come to see. Again, it's found in Tobago and a small patch of forests in Venezuela, not even on Trinidad.
Wow.
So those are two. The coquelicot, we know it as coquelicot. We were taught about it as coquelicot.
Yes.
But it is the English name for the coquelicot is Rufous vented shashalaka. It's also an onomatopoeia, so it's a word that sounds like the sound it makes, and they are very, very common there, and something that many people like to see. It's also on our $10 bill. Right, so another bird that's on our money is on the $5 bill, which is a Trinidad motmot, and that is a bird that many people say should be named the Tobago motmot because it is, while it's also found on Trinidad, it's much easier to see on Tobago.
Thank you for sharing some of those birds and even giving the English names, because I feel like some person's looking on, especially for the coquelicot, the English name for it. Can you just say it again?
The Rufous vented shashalaka.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, they probably would have heard it before or never even knew this is another name for it. Now, for someone who is visiting Tobago, what is that bird watching experience like?
Tobago generally has about maybe 3 zones where people do bird watching. So there's the main ridge, which is what, it's the topic of conversation currently. And that's prime rainforest habitat. You also have the wetlands of the southwest. Tobago has a very, very limited area where there are wetlands. And sadly, most of these areas are threatened by development. There's the Bonaccord Lagoon, which is a Ramsar site. It's currently also the site of a housing development. And there is the Kilgwin Swamp. So Bonaccord and Kilgwin Swamp are the two only areas where there are, wetlands, mangroves, that kind of lowland habitat. Kilgwin Swamp has recently been the site of a 500-room hotel, and I believe that they got clearance to build that hotel. So we may soon be saying goodbye to all the remaining habitat on Tobago's wetlands.
Oh.
And the third set of habitat on Tobago, which is one of my favorites, is the coastal and marine habitat. So there's a lot of, still good fishing, good reefs and so on, and that attracts a lot of birds, a lot of seabirds.
Yeah.
So many of these birds, they spend most of their lives out in the open ocean. They are pelagic birds. They are birds of unbroken horizons, as we like to say. And they only come ashore to breed. So we're talking about tropic birds, we're talking about terns, boobies, all of these different birds, and they spend most of their lives at sea, and they only come ashore to breed. So during a few months of the year, it's our only chance to see them. We could jump on a boat, and we can visit some of the offshore islands, and enjoy those sightings. So those are the three main areas on Tobago where we can do some bird watching.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And now you recently released a new book. Congratulations on that. Can you just tell us about it and what inspired you to even write this book?
It was, to be honest, a very last-minute decision because it was. I mean, I visit the main ridge very often. I lived there for a year also, and I really fell in love with it. It's a wonderful piece of forest, a wonderful habitat, and we're so lucky to live in a country where we have that legacy of conservation. So we're talking about 250 years, and for a number of years, we've been looking forward to 2026 because we know it's going to be a momentous occasion, right?
Right.
And but then I kind of realized that there was no buzz about it, and I think it deserves a buzz. It deserves fanfare. It's really a momentous occasion, and when I was checking up, and I said, I need to find out exactly what is the date, and this was probably at the beginning of this month, at the beginning of April.
Wow.
And when I was doing my research on it, I saw that it was April the 13th, 1776. That was a culmination of 11 years of back and forth in the British Parliament with people trying to convince the authorities that the main ridge rainforest is worth protecting.
Wow.
And it was finally declared on April 13th, 1776. And I said, you know what? I would like to release a tribute to the rainforest. I would like to highlight what can be found in the rainforest. I photographed all the birds that are resident in Tobago's rainforest, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And, they're doing nothing sitting on my hard drive. So I put them together, and I wrote a small introduction just to describe what the rainforest is like. It's my attempt to describe how it feels like to be in the rainforest, and then just get straight to the wonderful birds that are resident there.
Yeah.
For each species, I have one picture and a little bit of writing about the bird itself. So it's not very formal. It's some birds may have information about their ecology. Some birds may have information about how often they can be found or where they can be found.
Oh.
So it's a very a casual volume, and it's not expansive.
Yeah. And you touched on it, but just to expand some more, when readers read this book, what do you hope that they take away from it, or what do you hope is that learning factor to come from this?
That's a great question. I would love that when people go through that volume, that they just be inspired to go for themselves into the rainforest and see some of these birds with their own eyes. Because seeing them on pictures, seeing them on videos, it's not half of the actual experience. I spoke about the moths before, right?
Yes.
And it's a bird that many of us are familiar with. However, when you walk through the rainforest and the trails, and there are many knowledgeable local guides that you can hire. I strongly recommend hiring a local guide. They have a lot of insider information. Sometimes you walk through the forest and you see a flat stone, and around the stone you see a bunch of broken shells, and that is evidence of that moth, which is a bird taking a stone and using that stone as an anvil to break open the shells of snails. And that in itself is like, wow, these birds are actually using tools to get their food. And these are things that I didn't even describe that in the book, because the moths are incredible birds, and every single species, there's so much that you can say about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to inspire people to go and see for themselves and to create that connection for themselves.
Definitely. Now, what makes your book stand out from other wildlife books or even bird guide books?
Well, there is currently, as far as I know, there is no other book that is specific to the Main Ridge Forest Reserve. and there is nothing else that has been released to commemorate this momentous occasion.
Wow.
And it is, as I said, entirely about Main Ridge Rainforest. This is not about Faraz Abdul. This is not about photography. This is a remarkable piece of rainforest that we are really lucky to live with. And I just wanted to highlight that. I wanted to highlight the forest as well as the effect of the forest on its surrounding areas. So, part of the reason why it was protected in the first place was because of its ability to feed the rest of the land. Because remember, Tobago was all a state, right?
Yes.
And of course, the reason for protecting it wasn't, oh well, let's do environmental preservation. The reason was we need our estates to be watered, and it was a commercial interest.
Wow.
So we have to be real about that and to be real about our history. So I included species that are on the reef, for example, because the forest feeds the reef. I'm not sure if our viewers may be aware, but in 2020, half of Tobago was declared a biosphere reserve, and that's a UNESCO designation. And that is because Tobago, that main ridge, it goes directly to the reef in an ecosystem known as ridge to reef ecosystem, and that's a very unique ecosystem globally. So it's deserving of a lot of attention, and please, go and explore it.
Yeah, definitely. And now, would you say, or how important is public awareness when it comes to these things, and can it help boost ecotourism?
Yeah, 100%. Because once people are aware of these things, then we do things to natural heritage like this is something that we should be proud of.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can replace it. Because you can build a fancy building anywhere in the world, but you cannot build a rainforest. You cannot plant a forest. We as humans cannot create a ridge to reef ecosystem. This is something that instills a deep sense of national pride, should instill a deep sense of national pride. And once we are doing these things, then we'll be much better clued in as to what we can do. If we enjoy it, then likely other people may enjoy it as well. Right? So for example, something like pulling a seine in, and a lot of the fisher folk, like in the villages, the coastal villages like Castara and Palatuvia, they have this thing, and they always are very welcoming to tourists coming in and helping pulling in the seine. And I've been there several times, and when they're pulling in the seine, they pick up stingrays as well, right? And they're very large stingrays. And I've seen every single time I've seen the villagers take the stingrays and put them back in the sea. And every time we do that, and I've been with tourists, people say, "Wow, that's incredible! It's so refreshing to see that there is some level of discernment." And people respect that, and it also, that in itself bolsters the image of Tobago as an ecotourism destination.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've been to places before where they are, we're driving through looking at birds, and we pass by a fishing jetty. I'm not going to name the island, it's another Caribbean island. And on the jetty there was probably a 12-foot tiger shark that was hauled out of the water and being butchered, and my guests were mortified because we know the situation. All of these shark species are endangered. We absolutely should not be catching them. We should not be killing them because they're apex predators. They control the ecosystem, and also because of toxic bioaccumulation.
Right.
So, being responsible in how we interact with the environment is also going to help our ecotourism image.
Definitely. And I feel like you touched on this, but just to take you back there a bit, what are some of the major threats currently facing bird life in Tobago?
It's interesting. Tobago currently is, you see, it's a lot of the small island states are suffering in a sense because we don't do the things that are causing, let's say, global climate trends to go awry.
Yeah.
Not causing currents to be dismantled. Because a big problem is sargassum, and the prevalence of sargassum is because major Atlantic currents are being dismantled. And we're not really responsible for that, you know. But I would say that Tobago is bearing a disproportionate effect of climate change. And so it emphasizes the need for us to be extra vigilant.
Yeah.
And in the rainforest, I believe that most of the birds are doing fine. There is a species of owl that is only found on Tobago, a subspecies, and it is endemic to the island, called the striped owl. And this is another bird that we're supposed to be proud of.
Yeah.
But sometimes we let our superstitious beliefs get the better of us, and we see an owl and we think, oh, well, that means that someone is going to die, or is it devil, or whatever it is. And some people shoot them. So if an endemic subspecies like this is gone, then that's an entire chain, that's an entire branch of the evolutionary chain that's gone. But by far the most critical issue on Tobago in terms of the environment is going to be in the low-lying areas, the mangroves, the wetlands,
Yeah.
where it's these areas are threatened by habitat loss and development. Because there are areas, they are mentioned that there are only 2 main mangroves, and these mangroves are a home for a vast array of migratory species. So we're talking species that they breed in the boreal forests of northern Canada, and they fly here every year. And they know ancestrally that when they go to a place, well, their ancestors know of this place, and it's ingrained in their memory that, you know, you got to fly 2,500 miles to get to this place. So when you get there, it's bountiful. It have real food there, and you don't have to do anything. It's just caterpillar after caterpillar.
Wow.
So, you know, these birds depend on this kind of nutrition.
Yeah.
They get here, they're famished, they're tired, and guess what? There's very little habitat left, and the spraying of crops. And you know, we like to see butterflies and that kind of thing, but we don't like to see caterpillars. That doesn't make any sense, right? So you know, we have to be very mindful with what we put in the environment, you know, and we have to make sure that the birds have enough habitat, because when it's gone, the birds are gone, and when the birds are gone, it's the ecosystem unraveling, and there's no coming back.
Yeah. And now, Mr. Abdul, where can persons get this book, you know, in terms of gaining this type of knowledge, or just wanting to be a part of commemorating the main ridge forest?
Well, currently it is only available on Amazon. I have ordered some author copies, and I will be stocking a few local bookshops. But I do recommend just, you know, folks to stay in. If you would like to stay in the know, just visit my website, and I will announce it on my website, which is farazabdul.com. Because I have not yet, because it was such a rushed decision.
Yeah.
I have not worked that out yet. I didn't, you know, get a chance to have any copies with me. But there are a couple of places that my previous book has been sold. That's Paper-Based Bookshop in Port of Spain, and Sure Things Cafe in Lambo in Tobago.
Yeah.
And I will be approaching them, and I'm sure they're going to be very amenable to having this main ridge book.
Yeah. And now, lastly, what's one thing you'd like the viewers to take away about protecting the birds of Tobago's rainforest and, you know, just being a part of wanting to do better for the environment?
Just love it. That's it. Once you love it, everything comes after. Yes, so, you know, just go and experience it, and it speaks to you in different ways. And just put aside whatever preconceived notions that you might have about certain things. You know, sometimes you might see a snake and the snake is coming down and it's going to drink water, and you see, you know, you're thinking about a snake in a certain way and it's so, you know, terrifying and that. And then you see it go down to a little puddle and you see it drinking water and you say, this thing is like a, you know, it's just another life.
Yeah.
Making a living. So there's magic everywhere especially in the forest.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdul, for joining us this morning and shedding light on this. You've definitely gained the viewers and myself some very informative information, especially on the local birds that we see every day and somehow manage to maybe just miss it at that chance to appreciate the moment that we're seeing it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We are about to take a short break, and when we come back, we have more engaging conversations, so don't go far.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Breast cancer is the most prevalent cancer among women in Trinidad and Tobago, with an incidence rate of 37 per 100,000 population.
Definitely, I can say from when I first started just focus on breast cancer about 3 years ago, it's definitely you can see a steep incline and rise.
Yep.
And I'm generally, you know, I don't have data to quote it, but I think I would like to say that there are more younger patients being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And those are patients under the age of 40. I'm thinking your practice as well, I'm sure that you see and diagnose a lot more patients at a younger age.
Absolutely.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a
great idea and, I have a great concept. But until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back. Now, our oceans are constantly changing, but in recent years, these changes have become more noticeable. From shifting fish populations to the health of our coral reefs, we talk more on this in our environmental changes segment. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, our marine life plays a vital role, not only in our environment, but also in our livelihoods, tourism, and food security. This morning, we take a closer look at how our local marine ecosystems have evolved over time and what that means for our future. Joining us is Dr. Anjani Ganesh, Researcher Officer at the Marine Affairs Institute. Good morning, Dr. Ganesh.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sure, not a problem. Based on your research, how has marine life in Trinidad and Tobago changed over the years?
Well, based on my research, but also historical research, we've seen significant changes in marine life, both in Trinidad and Tobago as well as across the Caribbean. Over the last, I would say, 50 years, we've seen decline in coral cover. We've seen indicators of overfishing on our reefs, which is resembling changes in fish sizes and diversity. We've seen changes in the health of our marine environment, and this is also reflected throughout the Caribbean. If you go further back in time, you compare historical data like ship's logs, you would also see shifts or declines in large fish populations and megafauna or big marine life in the Caribbean. So there's been quite a lot of changes, at least over the last 50 to a couple hundred years back.
Wow. And you mentioned the changes now. What changes have we seen specifically in our coral reefs here in Trinidad and Tobago?
So the IMA has been studying the reefs over the last 40 years, and we've been monitoring consistently. And what we've seen is we've seen decline in coral cover. So that's important because corals are the trees of the ocean. So they provide the habitat, right? And so if you clear a forest of trees, you automatically reduce the amount of biodiversity can live in the forest. And the same thing happens with our coral reefs. And so what we've seen is a decline in coral cover, meaning a loss of habitat for marine organisms to live in. We've seen major declines related to marine heat waves, or as you probably know, coral bleaching events.
Yes.
And that's when the water gets really warm. And so we've seen loss in 2010. And prior to that, there have been records of coral loss from the 1997, 1998 bleaching events. So throughout my lifespan, there have been periods of mass mortality, which equates to coral loss on our reefs, which means loss of habitat.
Yeah. And now, are there any species that have declined or disappeared or, even decreased or increased over time?
Yeah. So again, related to the corals, I know corals seem to be like an alien organism to a lot of us because they aren't very charismatic, they don't move, they're very motionless. But for example, in the 1980s, we were home, or the Caribbean was home to two species of branching corals. And these branching corals were prevalent throughout our shallow reef areas, and there was a massive die-off related to disease. And branching corals, as you can imagine, like the branches of the trees, are super important for providing homes for marine life. And so they were the first. We lost most of them, up to 90% of them, to disease during the 1970s and 1980s.
Yeah.
We have seen very slow recovery of them. And Tobago has very small populations of them where you can go and find them, but they're not as prevalent as they used to be. Usually, when you have a loss of corals, what we've seen a lot of an increase in is macroalgae. And of course, when you think about oceans, and the main macroalgae that you're thinking of that's prevalent over the last 10 or so years is sargassum, but we're also seeing an increase in macroalgae on our reefs that is replacing our corals. So you're seeing that, what we call a phase shift in the community of coral reefs.
Yeah. Now, have there been any noticeable shifts in the types of numbers of fish in our local waters?
I can tell you, since I don't study the fish personally, but we do have indicators of, as I say, overfishing. So when divers who would dive back in the 1950s or 60s, you would have as what we call a full food web of fish life. So you go from the very small herbivores to the large predators. So sharks, big groupers. And what you do find is that over time, as you know, with the fishing pressures, the sharks and the groupers get fished out first.
Yeah.
And then you have the mesopredators, which are like the medium-sized, smaller groupers, snappers. They get fished out next. And then what you're left with are the parrotfish of herbivores. And so there are definitely indicators of that fishing down the food chain that you see on our reefs. And so to see a shark on the reef, which used to be very common back in the day, you don't see it anymore.
Wow. And now to tie in a bit of what you're saying, because you did share on it, how has climate change affected our marine life locally so far?
The climate change has been affecting our marine life I would say, over the last 40 years, and that is related to two things: marine heat waves and disease outbreaks. And this is, again, not specific to Tobago, but throughout the Caribbean.
Yes.
We've been getting the marine heat waves is when essentially during the summer temperatures, the waters are getting too warm, and that's as a result of climate change. It's pushing, it's creating stress on the corals, and it results in a breakdown in their relationship with the algae that lives in its tissues, and the algae is essentially expelled. The microalgae that lives in the corals that gives us color is expelled, and it causes coral bleaching. So while we get corals that have bright colors, during a bleaching event, they turn white. And eventually, if the heat stress is not abated over time, it's they can die from it. And we've experienced marine heat waves since 1997. What we're getting now is we're getting marine heat waves that are more intense and more frequent. So while back in the 90s, you won't get another marine heat wave for another 10 years. We're experiencing marine heat waves nearly every year or every other year now. So it is a lot of stress on the reefs.
It is.
Related to climate change.
And you touched on the disease part also. Can you just expand a bit more on that also?
Yeah, so science has shown that, so the disease outbreak in the 1970s, there have been the Caribbean has been known as a hotspot for coral diseases, unfortunately. And that is related to warming waters, but a combination of pollution. So what we're doing is the activities we're doing on land, we are sort of giving the microbes in the water a boost. And when the conditions are warm enough, and we disturb the environment, we basically encourage disease outbreaks. And so there have been several coral diseases that have impacted many species of corals throughout the Caribbean. The latest one is stony coral tissue loss disease. It's not a very classy name, but basically describes what it does to the corals, and it basically eats away at the tissue of the corals, the living part of the coral, and exposes its skeleton, which results in rapid death. And we've seen it throughout. It started in 2014 in Florida. It's spread throughout the whole Caribbean. It hasn't reached Tobago shores as yet. But given the currents, usually it takes a long time for diseases or invasive species to reach our waters. So we are bracing for that impact.
And now, with this disease, are there any cures being put in place for it, or is there a cure for it at all? Or what can help shift the tides in this disease?
Yeah, there's a lot of research going into developing cures. Unfortunately, given that we're working in the ocean space and there's so many coral species, it's very difficult for us as humans to apply that cure at a broad spectrum. You know what I mean? So like there's antibiotic treatment. However, we have to be mindful of how much antibiotics we use in the marine environment, what it means long term. So there are different strategies in dealing with diseases, but a lot of it is in curbing the spread. You remember COVID, when you had to reduce the curve and reduce the rate of spread to prevent it from becoming an epidemic stage. A lot of it relies on marine management, where, for example, if you have a reef where there's a lot of corals suffering from this disease, you close it off to the public, you monitor water quality, you do a lot of things to prevent the spread to other reefs. And what you have to do is allow the corals to be able to recover naturally, be able to build its own resilience and get over and survive, essentially. And a lot of those things require a healthy environment. So just to add a little bit more, if you're sick and you have a poor diet and you have a poor environment and you're overworked and you're not getting sleep, you're not going to recover from that disease as quickly as somebody who is being cared for, who has clean water, food and whatnot. And so that is really the strategy that must be taken in order for us to be effective on a larger scale.
And can you share some light on how these changes may affect, fishermen or even the coastal communities over time?
Yeah, so unfortunately, what happens underwater is out of sight or out of mind, but we don't feel the effects until it's too late. And I think that knowledge gap or awareness is really what we're trying to close in the work we're doing with the IMA. And so, as I said, corals provide habitats for marine life. So fish, lobster, conch, that is a major food source for us on the islands. It's also a major tourism draw. So a lot of people do still come to Tobago for diving, for dive tourism, for diving, or reef associated tourism. Believe it or not, the glass bottom boats visit Coral Gardens, which is one of the most visited reefs on the island, and it's still a pretty beautiful reef, and so it's integral to our livelihoods. It's part of our culture, even though we struggle to connect the dots of how we can make sure that our activities promote its health rather than encourage its demise. And so that's where marine management comes in.
Yeah. And now, so far, can you say, or even, based on results, know that if any improvements or signs that our marine ecosystems are recovering or can recover from what's happening?
Yeah, so I think so one example is the last bleaching event, which happened over 2 years. So we had 2 summers where it was really hot, and we had back-to-back bleaching events. We were bracing for the worst, but we were pleasantly surprised by the natural resilience of some of our species. That's not to say that, where coast is clear, the future is good.
Of course.
It just shows that there is a level of natural adaptation of the corals. So corals who have experienced bleaching in their history have been known to survive future bleaching events because they've sort of learned, they've learned the trade, and then now they're better equipped, right? That's not to say that we shouldn't, stop or limit climate change impacts, because if we don't curb the carbon emissions, the heat waves may get more intense to the point where it doesn't matter if the coral can withstand it or not, right? We're going to be losing these marine life to heat stress. So we're seeing natural resilience. We're also seeing that the research community of the marine biologists, there's a lot of work going into restoration and building natural resilience and sort of integrating restoration and strategies of rearing corals and breeding corals so that they can be better equipped to survive climate change. But at the end of the day, we have to fix the environment locally as well.
Now, you said we, and we're going to look on as persons looking on, the viewers, and even general public. How can human activities, in Trinidad and Tobago contribute to the changes that would take place over the years?
Yeah, that's a great question, which we didn't touch on yet. So studies shown that, like I said, healthy marine environments encourage recovery from these diseases or disturbances a lot quicker. So local activities, issues like coastal development, land-based sources of pollution. So that most of our drains lead to our rivers, which then lead to our oceans. So water quality and what goes down our rivers matters a lot. They encourage microbial blooming and disease outbreaks, sedimentation from land. So land clearing during our rainy season is a huge issue. If we can have management, we need watershed management, which considers our oceans. So if we're doing land clearing, let's try to do it in the dry season. Let's try to do it in a way that you're not clearing the whole face of the mountain at the same time. Have proper mitigation management, and have people or authorities, overseeing these activities with the ocean in mind. The other thing is fishing. We need the new fisheries management bill to come into play. We need regulations, and that is not just for the health of our ecosystems. That is for the health of our future populations, right? That is considering our future generations and the food stocks that we depend on from the ocean.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned how we can definitely do it, but have there been any efforts made locally to address these changes and to make any sort of difference?
That's a good question. I think at the national level, we are definitely struggling. I think there really needs, there is no, at the moment, there is no enforced marine management when it comes to the conservation of our marine environments, like our cories, our seagrasses, and whatnot. For example, we have mangrove areas that are protected under the Environmentally Sensitive Areas Act rule, but we don't have any coral species. Our marine park, there's now efforts to improve the management on that to align human and marine safety, which is great. So I think there are small pockets of interest groups of conservation that's happening, but what we need is a national plan for marine protection and management, which is lacking.
Yeah. And now for viewers looking on, what encouragement would you give to them in terms of cultivating the marine lifestyle itself and just wanting to be more a part of protecting it or even aware? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, it's a very simple thing to start with in your home, So the first thing I often tell students or people who want to be more aware is to get to know your marine environment better, right? So when you interact at the beaches and when you learn to swim, learn to snorkel, see what's under there, understand how the marine environment works, connect with local conservation groups, NGOs, volunteer in beach cleanups. You may think that beach cleanups are a simple activity, but you learn a lot about why and how the marine environment works, and that's the first step. And then it's just sort of your actions in reducing your waste, right? So waste management is a huge thing that results in pollution. Think about what you put down your drains, think about the plastic pollution, think about the carbon pollution. These are all things that you can do in your home, right? As well as in your community. And then when you know more about your marine environment and when you start acting and you realize it can actually be a challenge to manage your waste in this country, you can start advocating for certain things for your government. We are, as citizens, we're very powerful. We can vote on issues, and I think we need to be more involved on environmental issues and issues of, related to how they're conserved and whatnot. And so I think once you understand the challenges of waste management or the challenges of marine protection, we need to start advocating for our environmental space with our politicians and our leaders.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that we need to come together and be joined on. And, we have to do our part. Now, based on the trends that we're seeing, what can you tell us about how the future might look for marine life in Trinidad and Tobago?
I'll try not to be too pessimistic. No. I think so when I got into diving and studying the marine life, I was told that when I started my career, 20 years ago, that the marine life then would never look like the marine life 20 years prior to that. Wow. And so I do have to say that it will be the same for young adults who are coming into the field or who are learning or interacting with the marine environment, is that the marine environment of the future will never look like what it is now, unfortunately, with related to climate change and whatnot. That doesn't mean that it's not functioning. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need protecting. The marine environment is also evolving and adapting to the conditions it's being provided to. And so the future of coral reefs will look very different. I think it will increase in terms of human actions related to it. So like when you think of restoration, there are a lot of more nursery sites. You would definitely see a reef that is being changed by humans for good and for bad. So
Yeah.
with respect to restoration or with respect to degradation, you will definitely see a different ecosystem, but it's an ecosystem that, like I said, it's naturally adapting, and it's something that we will always be learning from, and we will always be benefiting from.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned, joining the field as early as maybe 20 years ago. Now, what can you say to someone who may be a bit hesitant to join the field, or what are some of the misconceptions persons may have had about being in a marine biologist or being in that, trying to narrow in on marine life itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think now more than ever, we are equipped to understanding. We have, a large history of science to back up, activities. We're part of a huge global network of marine scientists. And so it's not something that you have to do on your own. There's a huge global community that is working to conserve coral reefs around the world. And so there's a lot of knowledge to tap into. Despite the climate issues, there's a lot of traction and movement in terms of governance and conservation throughout the Caribbean. We're just trying to push for Trinidad to catch up. So it's a ripe environment that will be that requires or needs marine biologists. So there are a lot more opportunities in marine science. I focus a lot on ecology and conservation, but the science goes beyond that. It goes into genetics.
Wow.
It goes into environmental engineering. It goes into medicines, and so there's a lot. The field is a lot more broader, and so I would definitely encourage people to work with the ocean in whatever capacity. The ocean is 70% of the planet, and so it just makes sense that we understand and we work with it rather than against it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ganese, for being a part of this morning show and just giving insights to the marine ecosystem and being able to know how we can do things better to even conserve it. Any final words you'd like to leave with the viewers this morning?
I think, I mean, as I said before, spend your weekends getting in touch with nature, and aligning your activities with the marine environment, and see what's below the waters. That's the first step.
That's the first step. I love that first step. And it's really important that we have conversations like these and shed light on what's happening around us. Because many people would just go to the beach, and like you mentioned, even with cleaning the beaches, it's not as simple, as easy as you seem. You actually gain knowledge from it. You learn more about how to be better when you're on the beach, and even how to share with someone else who may not know. So it's really vital that we have conversations like these and, bring it into our environment, because each and every one of us have a part to play, and it's the same with our environment and the ecosystems out there. So thank you so much for joining in on the conversation.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Guys, we are wrapping up this morning's show, and we hope that you took away not just, birds are lovely to go look at or the marine life is there, but really see the deeper meaning that we were trying to share in terms of, look into what we have right around us and learn how to conserve, because there are all the resources out there that can give you the information. You just have to be willing to go look at it. And as I always say, stay informed, stay safe, stay positive. Up next, we do have Sean Michael Smalls at 8 with Talking Points, so don't go far. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye.
WESN.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform